Good evening. I call to order the Monday, November 21st meeting of the Wilson School Board. Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Mrs. Casper?
Here.
Dr. Kennedy?
Here.
Mr. Martin?
Here.
Mr. McCray?
Here.
Mr. Negrini?
Here.
Mr. Schneider?
Here.
Mrs. Cocker?
Here.
9 present, 0 absent.
Please stand for the posting of the colors.
Colors. Bolt. Left. Face. Ma'am, permission to post colors. Post colors. Present all.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All. Center face. Right face. Mark time. March. Forward. March.
Thank you, as always, to our JROTC for the posting of the colors. Dr. Trickett, Communications.
Thank you, President Cocker. This evening I have a presentation for our community as well as our board members. But before I do that, I just want to address some unfortunate news and conversation that we've been having in this community and make sure that Mr. Moravich and I take a little bit of time to kind of explain the processes that are used anytime that there is a member of our district, a member of our employee group that is under a form of investigation. So I'm going to speak more generally from the lens of how we handle processes like this. As we are a large district, lots of employees, this is a process, unfortunately, that we know and we've had to follow quite a few times. So what happens is a variety of times we're made aware of a concern, something perhaps that comes from an internal concern, maybe a student, maybe a parent, a community member, perhaps a child line call is made addressing someone on our employee team, or sometimes it even comes directly from the police. That concern is heard by our team, and immediately thereafter, if warranted, that employee is placed on paid administrative leave. Essentially what that does is that allows that investigatory process to happen. If the internal investigation is what's necessary, if it's something that's brought forth from people within our team, that investigation is done with the due diligence that's necessary to make sure that we're able to interview the proper people through the finding of fact that we have established. When it's an outside concern brought to us from an outside source other than an employee or a parent within our team, the investigation is handled externally, typically by the group that's bringing forth the concern, whether it's someone through Childline or the DA's office, perhaps through the police force. And while that external evaluation or investigation is occurring, our investigation ceases. We do nothing, the employee is placed on paid leave, and we wait. We sit and we wait until the findings of facts or the charges to be delivered to us and notified to us. Once we have those particular pieces that have been found through that process, depending on what is determined, we have to make a next decision. If it involves someone on our employee staff here in a public school district or in any governmental agency, from my awareness, before we can take the next move after the charges, we have to schedule what's called a ladder mill hearing, which essentially creates a structure for both sides to discuss what they know, and it provides the opportunity for the protection of everybody's rights, the victim as well as the person who's being charged. So I've asked Attorney Moravich to do is provide his legal perspective on these types of procedures, and also to provide any legal updates that he feels would be helpful for our community.
Thank you. So Chris did outline the process. That is the process. That's not unique to Wilson. That's not unique to school districts. It's really a process that has been established both under federal and state law. Louderman and Mill, which you mentioned, is actually a 1985 case that the Supreme Court outlined this process as being required. It's actually involving the Cleveland School District. But that is the process and the circumstance when they're contacted by CYS or by Children and Youth Services or by the District Attorney's Office or state or local police about an investigation. At that point, that investigation, they're the investigating party. Basically, the school district cooperates with that investigating party. However, the lead investigation is done by that department, by the district attorney's office or by the police department or CYS. They assign investigators, they prepare information, and until that information is prepared under federal law, because a person is a public employee, they need to be put on paid administrative leave. Once a louder mill takes place, then they can be put on unpaid administrative leave. Once the district attorney's process or CYS's process is over, even if there's a determination that they are not going to proceed, the school district then has an opportunity to do a second investigation if they so choose. However, that's a process that may be, depending on how long the district attorney or CYS takes, it could be days, it could be months. So that's not unusual to Wilson. Wilson follows the law that's required, and under the circumstances, that's the balancing of an accusation being made or an investigation undertaken, whereas the public employees has certain protections, as well as allow the investigation to go on by the investigating party, so that's not interfered with. And so that's pretty much the framework for how this process works. And as I said, it's done not only in our state and other states, and that's the process that Wilson follows.
Thank you, John. All right, I'm going to move up to the podium to present the next part of my process. Mr. Finley, can you get me a new computer, please? All right, so the next part of this conversation tonight takes us back to where we were in June. And for those of you that were with us at that time, we presented the district vision. Within that vision statement of creating an environment where kids love to learn, people love to work, and the community loves to live, was a specific focus on this particular slide of this conversation around generating a profile of a Wilson graduate. And this profile was developed really over the last 2 to 3 years throughout our school district, even going back, believe it or not, before the pandemic hit. That particular day, we were meeting with a group of students in this building, getting feedback from them around what are some of the indicators, skill sets, habits of mind that they felt a Wilson High School graduate should possess when they graduate from our high school. So this work has been going on, and as we got distracted by other parts of our organization, we kind of hit the pause button on that. We started to dust off that conversation, the data we collected from parents. We had surveys that went out years ago. Again, our students, our teachers were involved, presented actually to this board a few years ago as well on this particular topic. But finally this summer, it made it into our goals for this year. And going to this particular document, again, hopefully we saw this before, the first goal that we had for this year was to implement this Wilson High School profile of a graduate. And we have some action steps assigned on the right-hand side. This document kind of mapped out where we want to be in 2025, looking ahead 3 years, and then broke it down into this year, what are some of those action steps? So the very first one was to present it publicly to our community. So that's where we are today. We're here today to present what we believe is our best current thinking around a profile of a graduate. So what does that mean? When we say the term profile of graduate, or that phrase, in essence what that means is, again, what are the skills that we as a team, as a community, believe that every single kid should possess when they walk across the stage of graduation, walk across the turf, or wherever we are by the time your child graduates. For years, the Wilson School District and many school districts across the Commonwealth really solely measured the success of a school or the teacher, or maybe even the student, based solely on a test score. And while test scores are important, and while it's an important factor even in our profile of a graduate, it's an important factor in how the state assesses the quality of our school programs. I'm hopeful that we can all agree that it should not be the single guiding measure for our kids. For my own children who go to this school, I do not want them to be defined solely by a score in literature, biology, or algebra. I don't believe that that's comprehensive enough to be able to say my child will be successful in life, in their career, or in college. I actually would say I'm certain that that's not a comprehensive enough data point. So I embarked on this journey all the way back, probably even my last year as high school principal. I went all over the country trying to look at high-performing systems to see how they were doing this. Essentially, what were the things that they were making a priority? What were the things that were no longer a priority in their school systems to free up their teachers to do the important work that they have to do every day? All of that information, as well as national data that we were reviewing, I was with a cohort of superintendents that came together multiple times throughout the year and looked at data. We looked at research around indicators. What are some of those things that we know, research-based information, that will lead to a more prepared child? If we're not going to just use Keystone scores and PSSA scores, what are we going to use? So all of that work was being synthesized, being brought back to the district, again, being shared by others on our team. And essentially what we did is we came up with these indicators. So if you can look at these indicators or listen to these indicators kind of through the framework or the lens of a scorecard, these are the metrics that we're going to use, that I'm proposing that we consider using as we move forward as an organization. It's not necessarily a report card. You don't get a grade for this. It's just tracking one's progress towards achieving these indicators as set forth. So on this particular indicator website, the items in blue are in blue because they're part of the Pennsylvania Future Ready Index. So the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has already started this work. They've said to us as parents and community members that it's not enough just to come to school and get an A. It's not enough just to come to school and get a B. There's other factors. There's career-ready standards and benchmarks that need to be assessed. There's benchmarks on attendance. There's competencies that they believe are pieces that we need to make sure we're covering. So those items in this particular piece are in blue. An example would be meaningful engagement in career exploration. Many years ago, that wasn't a focus. Again, the focus was college readiness. There was the belief across this section of PA that we should be preparing all kids for college. Well, in 2022, that statement is just not true. There are phenomenal careers out there for kiddos who don't choose to go to college, or maybe don't go to college yet. So the items in blue, again, is just as a summary, are coming directly from that Pennsylvania Future Ready Index. We don't have a choice. That's our report card now. The items in red are the pieces that we're proposing adding. And those pieces came either from the research-based work we did with the superintendent's group across the country, or from other conversations that we had as a team that we felt strongly enough that the feedback suggested we should consider adding. So it's broken into three pieces: life readiness, career readiness, and college readiness. We have it in that order intentionally. Work at the national level is college readiness, career readiness, and then life readiness. We believe it's the opposite. It's the inverse of that. Not every kid has to be college ready, but every kid needs to be life ready. And we share in that responsibility, obviously, with the families that we serve. So here's an example. On the right-hand side is our 6 to 8 cluster. Participate in at least one extracurricular activity annually, club, sport, or co-curricular. Research suggests that there's value for kids that do that. That through that participation in those avenues, that they develop skills that quite frankly can't be taught in a traditional classroom. So that indicator made it onto our scorecard, if you will. What we're presenting here is that is a priority. We're presenting that we're going to track data on this particular item. Doesn't mean that we have to provide all these opportunities for kiddos. They might be involved at Yoakum. They might be involved in a choir at their church. But we want to know. And we want to be able to program for kiddos who perhaps don't have some of those opportunities outside of school. Because if we believe in it, if we measure it, if we prioritize it, it'll be what we do. So that's just one of those indicators. Another one, report a positive relationship with at least one adult staff member. No one can argue this. A sense of belonging in our school has to be one of the most critical things that we do. Every kid. And today on the enrollment report, you'll see there's more than 6,400 of them. Every kid should have at least one adult that they say, this person cares about me. At least one, right? That's a low goal. But that's something we're going to measure. How are we going to measure that? We're going to ask the kids. Our kids are amazing. They can do this. They can give us feedback. They can report who this person is. And again, if they don't have that person, we need to make sure we make that person for them. We need to make sure we find somebody to be that connector for that kid. So I'm just going to quickly go through this. Our board members have a packet in front of them today. This website will be posted to our website tomorrow for people to go in and review. There's no board motion tonight on this topic. We're just talking through it in a conversation. Community service. It's another one of those factors. We did this at the Wilson School District very well for years as part of our graduation requirements. The state moved away from it, so did we. It wasn't measured anymore, so therefore it wasn't a priority. However, a lot of our kids engage in community service every single week. A lot of them don't. So we're going to be monitoring this. We're going to be collecting baseline data. All of this year is baseline data, really. That's the stage we're in. Trying to see how we're doing on these indicators. So we have some goals and targets that shift from the K-5 space to the 6 through 8 space and then into high school. As you get into high school, there's some specific hours that we're going to be looking for, and we'll be creating programs to make sure that those things can happen. A lot of post-secondary exploration, a lot of career readiness exploration. Some of the college readiness pieces that we learned is the importance of academic grades, those local assessments, right? So we measure academics, well, we don't. The Commonwealth measures academics in the middle school level and the elementary level through the PSSA exam, right? It's a one-time exam given at the end of the year in 3 different core areas. But what about the local grades? What about the teacher that's with the student for 182 days? So the data here suggests that a student who earns a C or better in English and math has an indicator that they can be successful post-high school or in college. Also, a lot of data on participation in the visual and performing arts. To be a part of your program regularly at the middle school is an important data point. Doesn't mean every kid has to. We're not saying every kid has to do this, but it's an indicator. It's something, again, that research suggests is helpful in preparing a kiddo for school. So when we look at some of the life-ready indicators in high school, average daily attendance is a critical piece. We talked, actually, Dr. Weber, I think I saw him here tonight. We talked about this just today. If we can't get kids to come to school every day, we can't achieve our mission. It's impossible. So really taking a comprehensive look at our attendance rates. Not only is it important for learning, but it's important to produce career-ready kids. Those of you that own businesses, I'm sure it's better when people come to work. So making sure we're tracking that data. Looking at some of the life-ready skills, and this is an area that's still being developed with the group, but looking at more some of those habits of mind and attributes around grit, perseverance, social awareness, responsible decision-making. They're kids. They have to develop skills. They make mistakes. We need to help teach them how to make better decisions so that they don't make that same mistake twice. That's what some of those items in red are speaking to. As we get down into career readiness clusters, again, you'll see red and you'll see blue. You'll also see a little bit of gray. That's some of the work that we're doing. So work-based learning experiences, competent or advanced on the NOCTI exam, industry-recognized credential, advanced on industry-based assessment, competent or advanced on the ASVAB, 25 hours of community service, dual credit career pathway course, 2 or more co-curricular activities. So that cluster says 2 or more of the following. So again, what we're proposing is to track how kids are doing in these different areas. Some of these pieces are also tied into the graduation requirements. So what we're trying to do is blend them in and layer them into this profile that's being created. So as the state continues to change pathways to graduation, we're trying to make sure that we're responsive to that. So again, when we look at like those industry-based learning pieces, we're looking for children, all students, not some, all, to have at least completed 2 of them. If you have 4, that's great. If you have all of them, that's wonderful. But again, it's not necessarily a report card as much as it is a tracking tool for us. So some of the items in here that might be somewhat controversial or spark some conversation is with some of the college readiness indicators specifically, because I think they're pretty specific. So proficiency in biology, literature, and algebra keystone exams. We can debate the importance and relevance of these exams probably for weeks. But they're here, and they're expected with the Commonwealth. Doesn't mean we're going to teach the test. It doesn't mean we're going to stop what we're doing for 3 weeks and prepare kids. But we're going to track it, and we're going to report out how we're doing. I think that's the responsibility of a school district to do so. Grade point average in coursework is important. Grade point average is still one of the single largest pieces that colleges look at when considering kids for their institution. So we need to make sure that we're paying attention to it. We need to make sure that parents understand that it is still important. Some specific pieces in here with advanced placement and dual credit. Those opportunities help kids become more college ready. The research proves it. Kids that take an AP course and earn a 3 or better are better off and more prepared because they've endured the rigors that go with a course like that. Dual credit courses, kiddos that leave here to take courses at Albright or Alvernia or RAC are more prepared because they've experienced a college course on a college campus. Our own kiddos here that take dual enrollment courses, meaning they're sitting with our teachers while concurrently earning college credit, are more prepared and I would argue more confident because they've experienced that and have found success. So you're going to see a lot of that in here. SAT scores, ACT scores, still important. Arguably less important than they were when we were kids to get into college, but it's still a factor for some, and for some it opens the doors that otherwise couldn't be opened without them. Other things that we're considering here, FAFSA completion, making sure that our kiddos and their families have access to this, which we do already, but making sure that we're accessing all of our kids. Looking at senior year math classes. The state doesn't require it. We don't require it. But again, kids that are more college-bound should continue their rigorous course of study. So again, these are not expectations. They're not necessarily even what's going to generate a report card. What I would like to propose that they will be is metrics that we can use to develop a district scorecard, so to say, so that at the end of the year, or perhaps in August, prior to developing our goals for the year, we can take a look at the data. We can see what our kids are saying, what our parents are saying, how we're doing in these different benchmarks, and then we can start to goal set around them so that we have clarity and focus, so that the work we do is intentional and not fragmented. And then year after year, perhaps, if it gains traction and if our kids, most importantly, say that this is making a difference, perhaps we would develop a student scorecard so that the students could see their data and measure how ready they are for life, career, and college. So that's all I have for tonight. Again, next steps is conversation on these particular issues. We can start that conversation tonight, but at a later board meeting to come, there will be hopefully a resolution to approve this as the profile of the Wilson School District graduate.
Thank you for that Thank you for the presentation, Dr. Trickett. Do we have any questions or comments from the board on Dr. Trickett's presentation?
President
Mrs.
Cochran.
Casper?
Thank you. I was just wondering, do we have any data on what career paths our students have been successful on in terms of our alumni? Do we have any data on, where they've been maybe in the last, in the 10 years after they've graduated, to have an idea of what has been working and what areas perhaps we're not preparing students for?
Thank you. We don't have great data on that. We do track data when our seniors leave the high school through a survey. However, there are amazing tools out there that do exactly what you're asking, right? So we think we do a good job, in preparing kids for these different areas, but how do we know? So we need to collect that data. Clearinghouse data exists, and I'm sure our counseling team can help us with some different ideas on how to collect it, but that's a necessary next step.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Dr. Trickett? Okay, I would just like to point out that, especially for the high school list, that some of the career readiness kind of bullet points also kind of blend over to life readiness too. Like the community service, obviously they're going to learn a lot of life skills from being out in the community, giving back, and being around other people who on a regular basis also give back. I think it takes a certain kind of person to do that. So I think that's really, it's nice how they all obviously have their own categories, but really kind of blend together to make a well-rounded individual. It's great. Thank you, Dr. Trickett. We have no public participation on agenda items this evening. The board did meet in executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss personnel matters. Under Finance, requests permission to receive the nomination of Board Treasurer for Tuesday, November 15th, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. I'm looking for any nominations for that position.
If he's so willing, I would nominate Mr. McCray.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. Do we have any other nominations for that position? Okay, hearing none. Any discussion on the nomination of Mr. McCray? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Abstain?
Mr. Negrini,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
8 yes, 1 abstain.
Oh, okay. So for Mrs. Burkholder's record keeping, I'm sorry, Mrs. Burkholder. So 2.2, request permission to hold elections for board treasurer. 2.1 was just a nomination, and 2.2 is the actual election,
Since you only have one, the vote yes is for McCray, so.
just for Mr. McCray.
Yes.
Okay. Request approval of Finance Agenda 2.2 to elect Mr. McCray to the position of treasurer. Any discussion on doing this again? No? Okay, thank you. Roll call, please.
Do we need a motion?
You don't need a motion second,
don't?
it's just because you're just voting at this point.
Okay. Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Abstain?
Mr. Negrini,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes,
8 yes, 1 abstain.
thank you. 2.4, request permission to set the treasurer's salary at $0 for the November 15th through 2022 through June 30th, 2023 term. Looking for a motion for 2.4.
Negrini, so moved.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Second?
Case, second.
Mr. Case, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Abstain?
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 abstain.
3.1, request to approve the minutes from the Wilson School Board held, both meetings held on November 7th as well as November 14th, 2022. Looking for a motion for 3.1. Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Do we have a second?
Casper?
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Treasurer's report. Mr. McCray?
Request approval of the attached treasury reports and other fund reports as attached.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Negrini, second.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Payment of bills, Mr. Negrini?
Motion to approve the payment of bills from the following: from the general fund, $2,903,185.13. From capital reserve, $34,018.93. And from the 2019A construction fund, $21,462.43 as attached.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. We have a motion for 5.1. Do we have a second?
Second. Case.
Mr. Case, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Financial reports, Mr. Negrini?
Motion to approve the financial reports for the month of October 2022. Cafeteria, childcare, and activity accounts from Southern, West, and the senior high school is attached.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. We have a motion for 6.1. Do we have a second?
McCray?
Mr. McCray, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Superintendent's report, Dr. Trickett?
Yes, thank you, President Cucker. I present the superintendent's report, inclusive of personnel program recommendations 7.1 through 7.7. I would like to note that Christine Eberly is here in the back, all the way in the back of the room, but near Officer Johnson. She is under change in status tonight, 7.4. She was shifting from her current role to administrative assistant within the Department of Teaching and Learning. So welcome to the team, and look forward to working with you in this new capacity.
Thank you, Dr. Trickett. Looking for a motion to approve superintendent's items 7.1 through 7.7 as presented.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second?
Casper?
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
8.1, request permission to approve the following field trips for the high school wrestling team traveling to Cumberland Valley High School, the high school wrestling team traveling to Bethlehem Liberty High School, high school wrestling team traveling to Lehighton Area High School. Request approval of 120 students from 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade orchestra, chorus, band, theater to travel to the Luntfontein Theater to see Sweeney Todd. Request the high school baseball team traveling to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, as well as the high school softball team traveling to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Looking for a motion to approve item 8.1. Dr. Kennedy, thank you.
Case, second.
Mr. Case, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under consent items, request to approve or accept with gratitude the following donations. Donation of a shed from the Shiloh Hills PTO for the storage of items for activities for the students at Shiloh Hills. Looking for a motion for 9.1.
Schneider.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second? Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under Human Resources, 10.1, request approval of the revised HR generalist support staff job description as attached. 10.2, request approval of the revised sports support staff salary ranges as attached. 10.3, request approval of the following stipends for administrative coverage during the 2022-23 school year. 10.4, request approval of paraprofessional mentor stipends. Stipends will be $750 for the school year. Looking for a motion to approve Human Resources Agenda Items 10.1 through 10.4. Mr. Hart, thank you. Do we have a second?
Casper.
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Student Services, 11.1, request approval of a resolution approving and adopting a student discipline waiver and consent agreement dated November 7th, 2022. 11.2, request approval of a service agreement with Neurodiversity Consultants, LLC, to perform an independent educational evaluation at a fee not to exceed $4,500 in accordance with Board Policy 113.3. Looking for a motion to approve Student Service Agenda Items 11.1 and 11.2.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second? Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Technology and Media, 12.1, request approval to dispose of and recycle broken and obsolete technology equipment with Ingreen Electronics Recycling in Reading. Looking for a motion for 12.1.
McCray?
Mr. McCray, thank you. Looking for a second?
Schneider.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Finance, 13.1, request approval of the accelerated budget opt-out resolution for the 2023-24 fiscal year. The resolution states that the board will not raise the rate of real estate tax by more than the Act 1 index for 2023-24 of 5% or 1.43 mils. 13.2, request to approve the proposed settlement of business privilege and mercantile tax matters with the taxpayer and to authorize the district's chief financial officer to enter into this settlement agreement, subject to approval of the language of the agreement by the district's business tax attorney. 13.3, request approval of the budget transfers dated October 13th, 2022 through November 16th, 2022 is attached. 13.4, request approval to remove Mr. Michael Martin's name and replace with newly elected treasurer, Mr. Sean McCray, as a signer on all district bank accounts. Looking for a motion to approve finance agenda items 13.1 through 13.4.
So moved. Case.
Mr. Case, thank you. Mr. Negrini,
Second Negrini.
any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Curriculum and Staff Development, 14.1, request approval of the athletic training student internship affiliation agreement between Alvernia University and the Wilson School District commencing November 2022 and terminating November 2023. 14.2, request approval of the student teaching affiliation agreement between Eastern University and Wilson School District commencing November 2022 and terminating November 2023. Looking for a motion to approve curriculum and staff development agenda items 14.1 and 14.2. Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Second.
Casper?
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. Negrini,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Transportation, request approval of a service agreement with River Rock Academy for student transportation at a cost of $45 per student per day, beginning 11/14/2022 and ending the last day of the 2022-23 school year. Looking for a motion for 15.1.
Casper?
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second case.
Mr. Case, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Negrini,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under extracurricular, 16.1, request approval of a girls wrestling as an official school-sponsored sport effective with the 2022-23 season. Looking for a motion for 16.1.
So moved.
Mr. Martin, thank you. Do you have a second?
Case. Second.
Mr. Case, thank you. Any discussion? I have a comment, being the chair of extracurricular committee. This was brought to us from Mr. Kaufman, and I have a personal connection with the girls wrestling. I had the privilege of teaching one of the most successful Berks County female wrestlers. She was the first in Berks County to earn a wrestling scholarship and moved on to a team almost at the Olympic level. She trained up in Canada. And I reached out to her and said that this was going to be on the agenda, and her response was, "It's about time." So I hope that the board takes as much pride in developing our girls wrestling as much as I did when it was brought to our committee. Having a motion and a second, roll call, please.
Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Mr. Negrini,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under policies, we have a first reading of policy 615, payroll deductions, and second readings of policies 819, suicide awareness, prevention, and response, 614, payroll authorization, 613, cooperative purchasing, 612, purchases not budgeted, and 611, purchases budgeted. Under miscellaneous, we have our enrollment at 6,422, which is an increase of 39 from the previous report on October 14th. And committee reports. BCTC, Mrs. Casper.
I have no report for the BCTC or the Student Services Committee.
Thank you, Mrs. Casper. BCIU, Dr. Kennedy.
I have no report for the BCIU or the Curriculum Committee.
Well, this is going to be a quick section. Berks EIT, Mrs. Schlossman. Extracurricular Committee, I would like to thank the board for approving the all-girls wrestling team, and I hope that this gets out into our community and it offers more opportunities for our female athletes. Facilities Committee, Mr. Case.
Thank you, President Cocker. I don't have much, just a couple of things that are going on around the campuses for Wilson. The equipment is in for the Whitfield lighting, and install will be starting soon in the near future. And ground penetrating radar is scheduled for November 29th, and that's going to help with the Performing Arts Center with starting the design. So that's about it for facilities. The next meeting is at December 12th at 4:30 in the Operations Center.
Thank you, Mr. Case.
Thanks.
Finance Committee, Mr. Negrini.
No report.
Human Resources, Mr. Hart.
I have no report.
Thank you. Public Relations, Mrs. Troutman.
So I just have a couple of things I wanted to share. First of all, we're excited to announce that we are once again collecting much-needed items for deployed troops overseas through the Keystone Military Family Stocking for Soldiers project. Wilson High School student Anthony Fiore is the youth ambassador for Keystone Military Families, and this is his 8th year organizing this collection. Donations can be brought to any Wilson School building by Friday, December 2nd, and then a special community collection in cooperation with the Pennsylvania State Police will take place on Tuesday, December 6th, from 7:30 a.m. to 8:15 a.m. in front of the high school, out in front of the main entrance on Grandview Boulevard. A list of items that are being collected is available on both the homepage of our website, and there are also paper lists outside of the boardroom, right outside here, by the donation box. So we want to thank the community for participating in this much-needed collection. Also, it's winter concert season here at Wilson, so over the next few weeks, our auditorium will be filled with families and community members coming to support our students as they share their musical talents with all of us. A complete calendar of all the concerts is available on the homepage of our district website. We've already had a few concerts already, and they were amazing, so I guarantee you the rest will be as amazing. So please come out and support our students. They're free and open to the public. And then finally, we wanted to share a great new Wilson tradition that we kicked off a few weeks ago with our senior athletes who participated in a fall sport. The student athletes each selected one of their teachers to honor as their most valuable bulldog, or MVB. We captured all of the presentations on video, and we shared them on social media and in the Bulldog Blitz, and we had just an amazing response from the community. We want to thank 2001 alum Nick Lambros, who is the owner of Pennsylvania Anesthesia Coalition, for sponsoring this program. Through Nick's sponsorship, we will be able to provide our winter and spring senior athletes with the same opportunity to participate in the MVB program as well. So we're super excited to start a brand new tradition here at Wilson. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Troutman. And I saw the video of the students handing out their jerseys or T-shirts, and it was definitely a tearjerker. It was very emotional. So thank you for sharing that. Education Foundation, Mr. Case.
The Education Foundation met on Friday last week. It was a good meeting. A couple of things that were on topic were the fourth grade capital trip. So the Education Foundation was asked, so a few chaperones came in from each of the elementary school buildings for the fourth grade teachers. And there's a couple of things that are going on right now. The capital trip's a great trip. When students go, they go to the rotunda and meet senators and Pennsylvania congressmen. It's a great trip, and it's something that if you would just try and go as a parent, you're not going to have access to all these great things. So the trip typically has cost in the past $1,400. Now the trip is $2,600. So the chaperones came to the Education Foundation and were asking if they could have any donations, and the Education Foundation was donating $500 to each school. So typically, it's paid for partially by the principal's building budget, so the Education Foundation will supplement that. So it's a great trip. Some of the things that kind of came up, I just sort of brought up in general, is there's a lot of good field trips that can happen across Wilson. I know even at the high school level, AP, government used to go down to Philadelphia to Independence Hall, and really not able to do that so much anymore, only because we have such a bus shortage within Wilson where you have to squeeze in all your trips between after the morning bus run and before the afternoon run. So by the time you get down to Philadelphia and do anything, you basically have an hour, which is really not enough time. So I think comprehensively we need to take a look, and I apologize for taken away from the Education Foundation report, but in general, I think we need to have a comprehensive bus plan because there are a lot of important trips that are going by the wayside. So this kind of just brought up the topic. So something I just wanted to raise to the community and the board. We can talk about it at a future date. Some really great news. The Iron Chef competition is coming back. So save the date for March 19th, 2023. There's going to be a chef competition, new and improved vendor lane, auctions and raffles, and more. Very happy to see that coming back. Took a couple of years off because of COVID, and they're going to be back and better than ever. That's about it. Just an important service announcement. January 11th is going to be Career Day at Wilson, and it was brought up at the Education Foundation meeting to, if anyone has a really cool job or career and wants to participate, please get in touch with Karen Troutman or the administration, and we can really use your help and get more folks interested in spending part of a day and talking to Wilson students about what they do and some of the great career things that they do. I did it 1 year, and I was sandwiched in between a rock star and someone who did something really, really cool in the Army with all sorts of gear and such. And as an IT person, it was, I had tough competition on the left and right of me, so I'm a little shy away from doing it again, but maybe I'll do it this year. So anyway, just wanted to bring that up. That's my report. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Technology Committee, Mr. McCray.
No report.
Student Outreach, Ms. Danny Radash.
Good evening. The fall athletic season has officially come to a close, so congrats to all of the fall sports teams this year. On Saturday, the Wilson field hockey team played in the state championship against Lower Dauphin. Unfortunately, they lost, but we are so proud that they made it there and had a great season. Congrats to the Wilson Academic Challenge team for winning their match against Reading at the BCIU. And this weekend, the Wilson Theater Company performed the musical A Year with Frog and Toad, and Wilson West Middle School performed High School Musical. Both productions were very, very well done and had such talented casts. On tomorrow at the Gursky Stadium, there will be the annual Powder Puff Games, where the girls of the junior and senior classes compete in a football game, and all proceeds go to Minithon. And afterwards, Minithon is hosting a Texas Roadhouse fundraiser. And speaking of Minithon, on Friday, December 2nd, Minithon is hosting a Kids Night Out, which is a babysitting event for grades K through 5, and drop-off is at 5:30. Happy American Education Week. The Wilson Parent Teacher Organization is hosting a luncheon tomorrow for our teachers and staff from 11 to 12:30 in the lower and upper house cafeterias. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Mr. Maravich, we do have, do you have an individual update or report? Okay, then we do have public participation on non-agenda items.
Okay.
Thank you.
Rules of public participation pursuant to the board policy, Sunshine Law, and Robert's Rules. Individuals attending this meeting are expected to conduct themselves in a responsible and respectful manner that does not disrupt the meeting. Public comment is not question and answer, but instead an opportunity to offer comments on matters that are or may come before the board. In particular, personnel or student matters may not be commented on, even if the employee, parent, or student is speaking because of confidentiality laws. As it relates to questions, the superintendent may assign an administrator or may speak directly to the speaker after the meeting to attempt to answer those questions. The board respectfully requests that you direct your comments to the board as a body, as it is the entire board that will need to consider your information for future votes. Clapping, calling out, or cheering is not permitted, nor is audience conversations. Individuals may not approach the board tables. Individuals should make their comments from the speaker's lectern. Comments are 3 minutes, and I'll provide a 1-minute warning. Any person making threats of violence may be removed from the meeting or cited by local police. These expectations are outlined in Board Policy 903, which is on board docs embedded within the website.
Thank you, Mr. Maravich. First, we have Kent Gutzler, board member resignation.
Good evening. My name is Kent Gutzler, and I am a proud 1983 graduate of Wilson. I also am a proud father of a 2021 graduate and an 11th grader here at Wilson High School. We have an incredible school district that excels in academics, the arts, and sports. We have been recognized as one of the top schools in the nation and state. Why is that? Is because we have teachers that truly care for their students, administration that tries to hire the very best teachers, and a staff that is committed to our students. We have a board that was selected, rather was elected, to oversee this great school and prepare us for the future. Prepare students for their future, too. This includes all students. I may not always agree with the board, but I trust they are doing what they see as the best thing for the school and our community. Thank you for all your hard work you put into doing your best in good faith for our Wilson community. However, I was here on November 7th and witnessed one of the saddest days in the history of this board. I saw a longtime board member first refuse to apologize for threatening and ignorant statements regarding parents of transgender children. I listened to a racist article be read, including statements that showed no understanding of systemic racism and how it affects all people of color. I heard the comment about a certain group that was later denied. I heard it, and I watched that again. As many others have asked, including the entire board and our very well-respected superintendent, Dr. Trickett, has asked, so do I. Mr. Martin, please resign and allow our school to heal from this dark moment caused by you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Valerie Mackey, transgender youth.
Thank you. I'm actually the mother of 2 Wilson graduates, and I had actually watched live stream the November 7th meeting, which horrified me, and then I came to the November 14th meeting, and then I read a letter in the Reading Eagle on Sunday, which really ticked me off. So I just want to talk about transgender kids, because there was a comment about how parents are dressing 2-year-olds in dresses and forcing them into a different gender because they don't want the gender they have. I'm willing to bet hard cash no such parents exist. I'm sorry, I was a nanny for 15 years, and then I had 2 kids of my own. As a mom myself, I can assure you that while you might successfully put a 2-year-old into a dress once, you're never going to get him out the door a second time. Any parent that has had to cope with a 3-year-old throwing a tantrum because you tried to put them into the pair of jeans that they didn't want to wear that day knows perfectly well you're never going to get a child into any kind of dress that doesn't fit their sense of self. And by the time they're 5, I don't think you're going to get any boy in a dress out a door. In fact, I invite you to try it because that would be delightful. If you talk to the parent of any child under the transgender umbrella, the only way you're going to see a child dressed differently to how you think of their gender is if the child literally knows that he or she doesn't match the clothing that you're trying to get them into. It's an internal thing. It would be like me saying to a man, you're not really a man, put a dress on, because to me, you look like a woman. No. So maybe if more time was spent talking to the experts, the actual parents of transgender children, you might understand it a little bit better. And I would just like to also point out that there was an awful lot of talk for 2 years about how it's parental choice to put a mask on a child. It has to be the choice of the parent. We don't interfere in the choices of parents. And yet suddenly, when we're talking about transgender children, it's like, oh, well, my opinion is the one to go by. I just think the hypocrisy is incredible. And I really would like it known that not everybody believes what you say you believe. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Tammy Keener.
Evening. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tammy Keener. I'm a Christian. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I'm an Army veteran. And I served my country honorably. And I ran for school board last year, but it was frauded. We all know that. We'll take care of that later. I'm coming to you to defend Mr. Martin. Mr. Martin is a good man. He's an upstanding man. He's been an upstanding man of this community for more than 25 years. and I respect him. He's a Christian, and he has done more for this community than anyone. He at least returns phone calls. Not like you, Mr. Trickhead. I will return every phone call. 7 I have made to you in the last week. 7. Did you return any of them? Not one. I want to go into a little bit here. I'm going to read two. First of all, our country was founded on Judeo-Christian values, okay? And if anybody doesn't know what that is, I'm going to tell you. It's by the Bible. This here book is how our country is ran and founded by, and along with the United States Constitution. I'm going to read 2 verses out of here. We had a pastor here last week, and I'm appalled. I mean, I'm appalled at his language and his demeanor for being a pastor. That's a false prophet in my book. Leviticus. You might want to open up your Bibles and learn to read a little bit of good quality Christian wording. If a man has sexual relations with a man, as one does with a woman, both of them have done what is detestable. They are to be put to death. Their blood will be on their own heads. That's out of the book. Don't protest me. Don't do anything. That's out of our book. Okay? Deuteronomy 22:5.
No
A woman
comments,
must not
please.
wear men's clothing, nor a man wearing woman's clothing, for the Lord your God detests anyone who does this. Okay, those are 2 mere chapters I got out,
1 minute.
verses I got out of the book. Okay, Mr. Martin did nothing wrong. He simply read an article from a black pastor down south that has the ideas that what you guys are teaching these kids is indoctrinating them. I agree with him, 100%. Critical race theory is an umbrella, and if you guys don't know what it is yet, you're going to learn tonight, because I said this a year ago when I ran for school board, and these people are indoctrinating your children. Social emotional learning, critical race theory, changing of values and beliefs mindset, comprehensive sex education, equity, gender identity, welcoming classrooms, and intersexuality. If any of these words are in any of your curriculum of your children, that's critical race theory, and it needs to be wiped out. I am demanding tonight your resignation, your resignation, your resignation, and your resignation, because the 4 of you brought this in here. Boy, it's so good that we have a pedophile in our district whose mother has a daycare that you guys ship your kids to.
Please wrap up.
Parkway, 2 blocks from my home, and it's a good thing we have an attorney here on the board that protects criminals and sex offenders. Are we all happy with that? I'm not happy with that. I don't have children in the school, but I'm telling you right now, we better clean up the act here, because this is disgusting, and this is part of crimes against humanity, and you all are going to pay for it.
Thank you.
Okay. Sage Grafe.
I am so grateful to have this opportunity today. My name is Sage. I'm a junior here at the high school. I am so thankful for everything that has been taking place so far in this movement. At last Monday's meeting, I was so nervous to speak on this topic, but after listening to all of my peers, I realized I need to speak on this topic. What was said on the November 7th meeting. It is 2022. I thought by now racist remarks wouldn't still be being said, but this time it hit way too close to home. I thought what was said was extremely offensive to me. My own 2 little sisters are girls of color, and this appalls me knowing that this is my family being talked about. These are the girls that changed my life and mean the world to me, and are part of the reason why I wanted to talk so badly about this, knowing that someone with so much power in the Wilson community and on our very own school board is saying these racist and disgusting remarks about students frighten me. This certain board member, you have no idea what goes on in anyone's lives at home, so it gives you no reason to judge anyone. If you sadly really think this way, you should have kept it in your home and not in our second home. I also find it horrible that you think it's okay to judge parents when it is the hardest job. My mom is a single mom of 3 kids, and both of the fathers barely help her. She's the most hardworking person I've ever met, and she has 2 jobs and is an amazing mother. She always tells us to stand up what is right, but in a respectful way, and I think that some people could learn from her. The things that you said were so wrong. The teachers played it in our classrooms. I've thought about the things that you said every day since then. But you keep saying you aren't racist, but after you picked up and chose to read what you found online, that's exactly what a racist person would say, that they aren't one. It doesn't matter who wrote, you still read it, it came out of your mouth. People came here for over 2 hours last Monday, and they took that time out of their day for you to speak, and you couldn't even speak 30 seconds at the end. Our community is not going to stop until we know you are not on the school board anymore. No sorry can fix these words that were spoken November 7th. Only actions can. The action that can even start to fix this is for you to resign. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I would like to remind everyone that while someone is speaking, there should be 0 comments from the people in their seats, regardless of if you agree with their comments or not. Next, we have Cindy Rusnick, Parents as Vital School Community Members.
I missed the last 2 board meetings due to a death in my family. So much has happened in the last 2 weeks that I can't begin to address in 3 minutes all I want to say. When I spoke at the meeting on October 17th, I did so with the belief that, in the words of a sitting board member, parents ought to have a say in what their children learn and experience in school. I quote, "You don't get to choose for my child, and I don't make the choice for your child." I listened to a board member reinforce over and over again statements that teachers and librarians are experts, but by the end of the meeting, I still had not heard any acknowledgement of the expertise of a parent and a belief that these parents know their own children the best. Some of these quoted experts were the same people advising and supporting policies that kept our schools closed and children masked at a time when questions, alternate research, and data begged that these policies be analyzed and evaluated to make the best choices. Most of the speakers that talked about the controversial book that night did so with some viable suggestions for future book lists, blurbs on book lists, labels detailing violence and sexual content of book, and so on. Some board members made these concerns out to be more of a political agenda and started rallying about banning books. We just experienced a special session of the board to review comments by a member that were met with the outcries of racism. One of the isms I experienced at the October 17th meeting was elitism, attitudes and behaviors of a person where they deem themselves of more intellectual value and therefore worthy of influence and authority over others. A week ago, there was much talk about hurt feelings and cruel comments. On the 17th, I was taken aback by what I interpreted to be sarcasm, comments about reading about underwear, and a comment, "A book is not going to make you gay." I have gay friends and family members, and I found that comment to be very patronizing and flippant. Those friends and family members know, as do I, that reading a book did not make them that way. To me, these comments were directed to parents as if they were too stupid to think otherwise. I heard a board member state that we're naive to think children do not know about these topics. I agree. There's much in the world that children view and hear and chips away at their innocence. But if something can be done to support parents in doing right by their own children, shouldn't that be done? Just because there is pornography in the world, does that mean we ought not establish boundaries? In light of this weekend's news about a sexual predator taking on the role as teacher in one of our second grade classrooms, can anyone see why parents are concerned? A board member talked about the vulnerability of teens identifying as different genders. There's numbers of sexually exploited and trafficked teens. It's right up there with them. The suicide rate is right up there with them. The events of these 2 past years have fueled a level of mistrust amongst all people. We cannot make progress for our children by building on a foundation of mistrust. We need to check our agendas at the door. Practicing respect for all, no matter what they choose to believe, what race, religion, gender, identity, doesn't mean we have to allow inappropriate content to be introduced to our children under the guise of acceptance. A successful school program is one where administrators, teachers, board members, students, and yes, even parents work to protect the students, give them the tools to be critical thinkers, not followers, questioners, and not people of mob mentality.
Thank you for your comments. Brian Shavinsky.
To the recently censured school board member, you should resign effective immediately. Your pattern of comments are not taken out of context. The shock and outrage from the community is real and justified. This is not political correctness gone awry, trying to fit you into a box. You and I spoke 2 weeks ago after the meeting, one-on-one. You said you did not realize that the article would be so shocking to most. I find that shocking. Do you not realize that challenging people to meet people anywhere or anytime and avoid you on a dark street comes across as a potential threat or a gauntlet throwdown that you want to fight them? Do you not realize that bringing up race frequently when talking about behavior and punishment comes across as racist? Bringing up race? Do you not realize that your letter to the Reading Eagle editor this past weekend shows you still lack an understanding of how your harmful past comments have been? Harmful towards African American community, harmful towards the Asian community, harmful towards the LGBTQ community, and harmful to this Wilson community. Do you not realize our community deserves better? I request you look inward and come to the realization you should resign effective immediately. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Daniel Buckley.
Good evening. My name's Dan Buckley. This is my 17th year as a hourly teacher at Whitfield. I've lived in the district with my family for 22 years. I'm here to talk once again about Mr. Martin and his continued presence on the board. Number one, let's put this "I'm not a racist" thing to bed. Mr. Martin singled out and disparaged a specific racial group when attempting to address a supposed discipline problem. That is the very definition of racism. Case closed. Number two, last week over 50 people spoke out publicly at the school board meeting. All but 3 of them condemned Mr. Martin's words and actions, and many of them asked for his resignation. That's over 90% of his constituency. He may have some support, but most of them are not willing to express it so publicly. That's telling. Number 3, Mr. Martin's 8 colleagues on this board voted unanimously to censure him, and they all asked for his resignation. That is telling. So, Mr. Martin continues to sit on this board with very little support from his constituents and 0 support from his fellow board members. That is telling. That tells me that he clings to his seat out of nothing but hubris and ego. He doesn't understand the pain he has brought to so many. The school community cannot and will not truly heal until he steps aside. I ask him to do the right thing and resign immediately. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Chastity Santiago.
Okay. Sorry, I don't have my glasses with me today. I forgot them at home. All right. Communities with shared interests, values, thoughts, and attitudes encourage children to live better, strive for more, and focus on the results we are looking for, and create a sense of belonging, acceptance, understanding, and inspiration. I think we can all say that recent events clearly illustrate that collectively we need to do better as a community. Meeting new and diverse people is one of life's greatest pleasures. But as people are diverse, so are their opinions and thoughts and experiences and aspirations. These differences make conversations very interesting and enlightening. They open our minds to new experiences and values and even help us to reevaluate our behaviors and attitudes. Surely you've experienced this before. Haven't you ever finished a conversation feeling enriched as if you've learned more than a year's worth of study? However, sometimes these discussions do not go according to plan. There are often clashes when one holds a strong viewpoint or they disagree with the other one. These conflicts and misunderstandings can ruin a conversation. We, as adults in this room, failed to show our children that discussion should not degenerate into fights and insults. We left no room for polite, calm-headed, and fruitful discussion. Suppose you could maintain your cool head in an argument and respond logically. Imagine how much you could learn from someone. We fail to understand that conflicts in conversation do not occur simply because of a difference in opinion, but also due to impolite voicing of those differences. Healing this pain means discussing and setting boundaries for equal application and accountability. I understand individuals may be hurt by what Mr. Martin said, but and censoring him and not taking action on other things that have implicated and hurt these other students here and taking accountability for that is telling me that this is all a show. Not censoring for the many racist and disparaging statements made towards whites and Hispanics by a specific board member, and not addressing teachers promoting a petition signature during class time, leaving multiple students feeling intimidated, makes you just as bad as what you're accusing.
Desiree Soto.
Hi, my name is Desiree Soto. I am a Puerto Rican and Dominican young lady. I'm not black, but I'm here to support many of my friends that felt disrespected by Mr. Martin's words. This is my first and last year at this school. I was homeschooled since first grade because my mom decided it was the best thing for me to protect me from racism, drugs, and many other reasons. For my senior year, she let me come to Wilson because she saw and heard many great things about this school and the staff. She sent me here because she thought I'd be safe from all those reasons that I pointed. Since I've gotten here, it's starting to seem like this is a facade. Mr. Martin has said some incredibly hurtful thoughts that he read off an article to back up some shameful thoughts, reading that black people get offended often quicker and more often than any other group I've met. Black people get offended for petty reasons. Black people cannot separate business from personal. Many of them get offended for when you get called for doing something wrong. He goes on saying, ask a young thug to pull up his pants and watch how he looks at you. Ask a black person to turn down their music. Observe the response. Lock the doors at 4 and watch the reaction to those that come outside the door at 4:05. A couple of board members spoke up and were like, what was the purpose of that? Your words make people walk out. Your words came out of your mouth are hurtful and offensive. Last board meeting, you heard many people talk about your words and how it affected them, and all you did was just sit there and act like if they didn't speak at all. You said you're hearing us, but you're not. You said to call you out, which we are. And you're not doing anything. These black people or young thugs are speaking up, and we will not be silenced until you resigned. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. That's the end of public participation on non-agenda items. Is there any other business from the board? Dr. Kennedy?
So I have decided to take back the after the board comments, and I'm going to invite all my other board members to follow my lead. What I'd like to do is have some conversation on things that we can do to make the school district better. I have a story and a big ask, and then I have something just fun to share. So after the November 7th board meeting, a little less than an hour, when I got home, I was doing the dishes and I got a text from my husband that my oldest was having a seizure upstairs. And so I ran upstairs. His seizures usually last about 2 minutes or so. And this one wasn't normal. It was bigger, it was longer, and we started to get really nervous. So I sent him down for the rescue medication, and I started to call 911, and Patrick just got really stiff, and his eyes rolled all the way back in his head so that I couldn't even see any of his blue eyes, and he turned blue, and he went limp, and I had a moment of panic, and then I got a whiff of bleach and a little bit of blonde hair, and I zapped into the Wilson second floor from right on the top of where the gym is, where I took 10 years worth of CPR and first aid classes here. And I went through the steps like it was yesterday in my head. I did not say, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Because clearly he was not okay. And I thought Steve was going to think I was a little nuts when I asked him that. But in my head, I said, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I tilted his head back to clear his airway. I listened and looked for breath, and there was none. I started the 2 initial rescue breaths, and on the second breath, he came back. But I felt fully confident that if I had had to administer full CPR, I would have been able to do that. I had 2 opportunities in my life to take CPR. The first one was 10th grade with Miss O'Brien in the wrestling room of Myers High School. And the second one, like I said, was 10 years, probably, give or take. I think it was like the last 3 years I was teaching, they stopped offering them, but every single summer, we were allowed to take as optional in-service first aid, CPR, and in the beginning, it wasn't just first aid and CPR, it was first aid, infant and child CPR. And I'm not sure we could give a better gift to our community and to our students than to require CPR for our students and to offer CPR and first aid training for our staff every single year and encourage it. Back in the day, we were able to even take it and get paid to take it. And I was poor, $27,500 to start. I took every paid in service I could possibly get. So I'm asking, and I had asked this when I first started being on the curriculum committee back before when we didn't have the same administration. So I'm going to ask this again. To please offer all of our teachers and all of our students first aid and CPR. I know it's a big ask, but I think it's something that we can do as a district. So with that said, directly after leaving the hospital, we stayed for about 20 hours, I went to cheerleading practice because my cheerleaders were in a competition. And I have to thank so many people for this. First, I want to thank Tanya Cosgrove, who came out and kind of gave us the lay of the land, and Stacy Futrick for being so wonderful. I have to thank our scheduler. Somehow, I got the gym and the wrestling room for 2 weeks for my girls on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I have to thank our lovely theater teacher, who unlocked the wrestling room for me all 4 times I had the wrestling room. And I did send Mr. Citrone video. Oh, good. All right, so not only did we win the competition, but Wilson swept the top 2. So I didn't get a really good video of Lincoln Park. Lincoln Park parents probably think I'm insane right now because poor Kim Sechrist was texting every parent. So you're going to see a clip of Van Reed, and then you're going to see a clip of Lincoln Park. And I do want to note that both of these cheer squads are coached by Wilson kindergarten teachers. So go for it. practice for them. And I'd also like to warn you all, you might want to stay away from the Dairy Queen on Penn Avenue tomorrow, because I will be taking all 12 of my girls out for ice cream. And unless you've ever wondered what it's like to herd loud cats that like to randomly cartwheel all over the place, then you might want to come tomorrow. But I encourage anybody on the board that wants to share good news, or if a parent has something that you want me to share, let's change the end of these board meetings to make something, some positive change. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Some of those flips make my joints hurt just watching. I can't imagine. I would fall immediately on my face. So it's very impressive, especially for such a young age. Any other discussion from the board? Mrs. Casper?
Yes, thank you, President Cocker. First of all, I just want to say, Mom of the Year, for all you do, and to those 2 kindergarten teachers as well. I just wanted to reiterate what I mentioned at the last meeting on the 14th, that we should remain vigilant and continue to support our most vulnerable populations of students, our LGBTQ students, our Black and Brown students, and all students who have recently been exercising their right to peacefully protest and express their viewpoints. We must also be clear to students what we can and what we cannot do. We realize the past couple of weeks have been disruptive to students' education, but it's also an experience that supports a lot of learning in and out of the classroom. This can be really tough on our educators, but we need to find a balance. We need to support our teachers and administrators who are recently doing a lot of heavy lifting and maintaining a comfortable educational environment through some unusually difficult times. So I want to thank all of our teachers and administrators for what they have been doing to support our students. And I hope that moving forward, that we will continue to stay vigilant and listen to our students and our teachers and support them as best as we can. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Casper. Any other discussion? Mr. Negrini?
Yes, just very briefly, and I normally don't do this, but the irony is not lost upon me nor upon any, I think, educated and civic-minded individual that someone who professes to support the Constitution of the United States would be critical of an elected official who served this community for 12 years, defends constitutional rights of individuals day in and day out. John Adams represented the soldiers involved in the Boston Massacre to assure the legitimacy of our criminal justice system. And I would just keep that in mind moving forward as we are trying to educate individuals about all things civic-minded and otherwise in the Wilson School District. So I felt the need to put that before the public upon hearing such a claim from one of our constituents and a personal slight towards my profession. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. Any other discussion?
Just a couple of words for Mr. Martin. Just in general, the last meeting we had, you mentioned you were still processing, and one of the things that I was sort of challenging you with, whether you were staying on the board or not, your personal decision, but I would like to understand, and I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I will be continually waiting for any kind of remorse or kind of words that you would like to provide the community outside of the Reading Eagle. This would be your forum. So I remind you of that. I would imagine that we are, at least I'm waiting, I'll speak for myself, because I don't see it. So, you know, if you're going to continue to stay on the board, I would imagine you would have some words for the community after having 50 people speak last week. If anyone didn't learn something after that meeting, I'm afraid for humanity in general. I would hope you have grown as a person. If you have, I'd like to hear about it and present that opportunity. And just, I'll leave it there, because I'm disappointed if you're going to be on here and just remain silent, then I'm disappointed. Not that you would care about that or not, but I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Mr. Martin?
Okay, at the last meeting, obviously, there was a lot of heated discussions. For me, there was no sense trying to talk any further. I saw that, the decisions were made, people spoke. I did try to apologize. Some of the people just kind of ridiculed, so I'm going to try it again. Not sure, what more to do, but, I met with my family, so I deeply apologize for the article I chose to read. It was hurtful and offensive to many people, and I regret that. I will take responsibility for my actions, and as previously stated, my intention was never to intentionally hurt anyone. And while I recognize my words can never be taken back, I understand the hurt. By talking with many community members, which to me is an important step forward to understanding, and I'll strive in my efforts to be a better person than I can be, and that so many know me as. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Any other discussion from the board? Okay, looking for a motion to adjourn.
Schneider.
Motion adjourned, or meeting adjourned.